Okay, it's cool. So I'll just do a little bit of editing or whatever. So hi Jeremy, good afternoon. Thank you for your time
Gamer.
being here. Um, yeah, I wanted to ask you what trends have you been noticing in cards lately, and what are some things that you think people should be looking out for?
Yeah, so I guess first thing is I should preface this by saying that, I don't, when I hear the word trends, I think about and this might just be, the way my brain goes, maybe it shouldn't, but I think sort of I think short term and I think like rookies, because that's kind of where a lot of the hobby's attention is on short term flipping and what rookies are hot. What football quarterbacks are we collecting? What basketball stars are we collecting? Who's hitting home runs in baseball? All that sort of thing. So I guess that's the trend that I'm noticing, Tamer, is that people are collecting and investing in players who have done something extraordinary recently. There's a lot of recency bias in the hobby, in collecting and investing in sports cards. So I've noticed that. I've also noticed that, which a lot of other people have noticed too, is that over the last few years, a lot of the people coming into the hobby are putting their money into a lot of these rookies, these unproven talents, and as soon as those players get hurt, now these holders of these cards they get scared and they might try to sell them at a loss, and that can leave a bad taste in their mouths in terms of their overall experience in the hobby. So I think that somewhat summarizes some of the trends that I'm seeing, and what I think people need to do is kind of zoom out a little bit, have a expand the horizon, or push out the horizon from maybe a 2 month turnaround to myself. I often joke around on my show that I have a 20-year horizon. It's not a joke, but it's true. I don't care if I buy a card for $1,000 yesterday and it goes down to five to if I buy it for 1,000 yesterday, it goes down to 500 tomorrow. I don't worry about that because I know that I'm only concerned about what that card's going to be worth in 20 years from now, when I'm most likely to sell it. So, if you zoom out, you take a broader approach, and you don't get caught up in the day-to-day on ice, on field, on court performance of the players, that you might be better off. But that's what happens with current players, especially rookies. So I would also say, if you're somebody who is really focusing on these young players and rookies, maybe hedge your bet, balance your portfolio out a little bit, and also collect or invest in some proven players who have championships, maybe are already in the Hall of Fame, that sort of thing. That's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, I think that's more of the collector versus the flipper. Someone who's just doing, like, because you mentioned turnarounds, and someone wanting to get rid of something quickly as opposed to holding on to it and selling it at a more appropriate time.
Yeah, it's also the flipper versus the investor. So I like how you said it's the collector versus the flipper, but then there's the flipper versus the investor. These are three different sort of approaches to the hobby, Tamer. And something that I've often talked about on Sports Cards Live is that, you know, any hobbyist fits somewhere on the spectrum of, you have collector here, investor here, and everything in between. And I think everyone falls somewhere in between. I don't know if anybody is purely a collector or purely an investor. Maybe they are, but the flipper is sort of in between there as well. They're kind of they're not a collector. They're not necessarily an investor either. So actually, maybe they fit outside that spectrum overall. So when you say, collector versus flipper, yeah, there is a versus there, but there's also a flipper versus investor, and that might be even more apt because a flipper is investing in short-term inventory, where an investor is investing in long-term assets.
mhm. Yeah, I think that's very aptly put. But if I may correct you, my name is pronounced Tamer. Um,
Sorry.
yeah, it's okay. It's all good. I get that often, so I'm used to it. Um,
Thanks for setting me straight.
yeah, no, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, but to move on, yeah, we did like you did say something that was very important as far as flipping versus investing and short-term versus long-term investments, because uh, uh something that I'm noticing recently is that uh, you know, I think it's been going on for actually a lot longer than what I than just a recent thing. But looking at these cards as long-term investments and as uh, you know, like pieces of stock, and trading it like a commodity in that respect. And um, I'm just curious as to there's nuances to that, and everybody falls within a spectrum. So you're saying when a flipper has aspects of short term and long term, an investor has uh you know between short term and long term thinking in whatever they're trying to collect as well. um it has me thinking, you know as far as that goes, the nuances of that, like if someone is going to consolidate some of their collection to go for a particular player or a particular team, or if they're going to liquidate something that is of higher value to get more of something else that they think is going to go for a long-term thing. um what do you, in your perspective, you what do you think is going to help collectors really improve their collection and improve their value long term, but also have fun in the short term and not necessarily like bite it, or um or vice versa, someone that is trying to, they're trying to just liquidate something really quick because they're trying to um their car broke down or something like that, and they need to just get some quick cash.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
there's a balance.
yeah, like you're if you have value in cards, and it's sort of similar to money in the bank in that you can sell a card to pay for an auto repair if you need to, and you have a card that's worth that kind of money. And you can do it relatively quickly. I mean, cards aren't the most liquid of assets, but it's you can sell something if you have a network, if you have a social media presence, you can put a post up on Instagram or list to do a listing on eBay and get rid of something pretty quick to and bring in some money. So, I think that these cards provide that sort of financial resource in the event that you need to raise some money quickly. We often, as collectors, get asked the question, would you rather have one $1,000 card or 10 $100 cards? And there's been this whole theme of consolidation over the past couple of years. People saying, you know what, I'm going to trade up. I'm going to get rid of 10 $100 cards to get into $1,000 card, or I'm going to get rid of 10 $10,000 cards to get into one $100,000 card. I've never enjoyed that. I want to have more cards because I love cards. Having one card would be very boring to me, or if my whole collection consisted of only 50 or only 100 cards, I think I'd get pretty bored. My collection consists of about 3,000 cards. So, and I love each and every one of them. Not equally, but I love them all. I'm also a very advanced collector. I've been doing this for over 40 years. And another thing that's really important is to understand that your journey in collecting is going to change. It should be fluid. And I think it's a mistake to put too many rules and barriers in place for your collecting.
I
You
agree.
might, people often ask, who do you collect? I don't think that's the right question. I think the right question is, what do you collect? Maybe it is a player. Maybe it's, I collect all the Topps baseball sets from the 80s and I'm eventually going to go to the 70s and backwards. Or maybe I only collect the Sacramento Kings, or maybe I only collect the Cleveland Guardians, whatever, or the Toronto Maple Leafs. Maybe that's all I collect. Or I only collect one player, or I collect rare inserts, or I collect Jordans from the 90s, and so on and so on.
Mhm.
There are a million different ways to approach the hobby, Tamer, and I think that that is what's really interesting. And I love being at shows and asking people, how do you approach the hobby? Because there's no one way. And when But a lot of people ask, who do you collect? Again, not the right question. It's either what do you collect or how do you collect? Because that'll open it up to people who collect, don't just collect a single player. So there's a lot of ways to have fun in the hobby and to be responsible financially. Of course, stick within your means. Don't overextend yourself. Watch the credit card debt. Don't take out a home equity line of credit so that you can buy sports cards. Unless you want to. Listen, I mean, that all comes down to how risk averse you are, you know. So, but as far as like, you know, I have like I said, I have a pretty broad personal collection, but I'm always reevaluating it and going through it and saying, do I still love these cards? Because I can fall out of love with a card, or I can buy a card I think I'm going to love. It arrives, and I realize I don't love it as much as I thought I was going to. And I've allowed myself the flexibility to say, okay, I'm going to sell that card, maybe at a card show, maybe just start it on sell it on eBay at start at 99 cents and see where it lands, and
Mm.
take a loss here and there. I'm okay with that, because that, even if I take a loss on a card, and this is important for flippers and investors, you may have bought a card in the peak for $1,000. Now it's worth $300 or $400 or $500. You can decide to wait for it to bounce back, however long that may take, may not ever happen, or you can sell that for what you can, for like the liquidation value, whatever that, again, $300, $400, $500. Take that money, buy something you're going to like more, buy something that you feel has more upside in value. So either take the collector's approach, buy something that you like more, or take the investor slash flipper approach, buy something that you think will go up sooner that you can then recover that loss with. So there's all sorts of ways to do it. But at the end of the day, if you're buying items that you like, people often say collect what you like. If it goes down, you won't care. I don't agree with that. If I buy a card I like for $10,000 and it goes down in value, I'm going to be upset about that. I'm going to be like, damn it, I shouldn't have bought that card. So even though I like it, I'm still going to be kind of mad that it's now worth 30% of what I paid for it. So you have to balance out what you're spending. And while people often say collect what you like, you'll never take a loss, I don't know about that. You still might.
Yeah, you still might. But the thing is, like, that shouldn't deter you from continuing to enjoy your hobby. But losing that kind of money is not fun, no matter how much money you have. So,
And you said right there, Tamer, you said, is it shouldn't keep you from enjoying your hobby. So is it a hobby or is it a flipping business? Because pure flippers, God bless them, they're moving cards around from one home to a new home. They're providing an integral function to the hobby. And I love flippers because they're bringing cards from Los Angeles to Toronto or New Jersey to Burbank, whatever it might be, right? They're helping facilitate the movement of cards from some from a not as good home to a better home. That's and so great for them. But are they doing it for a hobby, or is it a business? And I think it's important to sort of understand that. And again, both approaches are good and necessary, but are you enjoying it as a hobby, or are you saying, it's important to enjoy your business as well?
yeah, well, I suppose that just depends on the collector and where they're coming from with it, you know.
The hobbyist. I even go take it a step further. I say it depends on where the hobbyist is going with it. Because when you say collector, you're implying a collector, which is different than a flipper. And collectors can be flippers, collectors can be investors. There's a Venn diagram where they all cross into the
Mhm.
same. I probably fill all of them. I'll buy a collection to flip it because I like to set up a card shows, but I'm also an investor. Anytime I spend what is significant money to me on a card, I consider it an investment, but it's an investment that fits into my collection. And then I'm a collector. I buy cards that I have no vision of getting my money back. I just really enjoy the cards. And usually they're, under $100 sort of thing. So I think hobbyist encompasses everybody. And then it's fun to kind of dissect it more granular.
Yeah, that's a very thoughtful answer, I think. Um, because it takes into account where people fall on that spectrum of that, you know, um, as far as someone that may be taking this seriously as a business, and this is how they try to, feed their family, then I think if that's where they're at with it, then it's more important to, you know, uh, just be w- wise with your decisions about what you're going to purchase, and um, where you're putting your money, so that you get a return on your investment. Um, and then as far as someone who is just taking it recreationally, they don't really necessarily have to take that into account as much. Um, they can just be more, oh,
Recreational.
yeah, just more leisurely about it, and just
Do it with their kids and
yeah, yeah,
100%. That's when I say we, I mean people who are active on social media and with hobby accounts, special hobby accounts. I think we kind of forget that sometimes, that there is a whole segment of the hobby out there, which is just the people who go into the retail places and buy the odd blaster and enjoy opening it with their kids while they're watching a baseball game on TV or a hockey game or whatever, and just enjoying the cards. A young kid pulls a Sidney Crosby or a Connor McDavid or a Mike Trout or a Steph Curry. They don't care what it's worth. They're just happy to get that player.
right.
And that is big, probably a bigger component of the hobby than all of us, singles collectors and investors and flippers. Maybe not bigger, but just as important.
Yeah. Yeah, Dr. Beckett mentioned something about that. He said we like to collect our heroes, you know?
Yeah. I've heard I've heard him say that, and I think that goes for kids a lot of the time. I
Yeah,
think for us, I think for adults, it's a bit different. We like to collect our those who entertain us versus who are our heroes. I find it awkward to call an athlete a hero. um, they're just really good at bouncing balls or swinging bats or stick handling a puck with a stick. Is that worthy of being a hero? I think heroes are really, this is going to sound cliche, but the real heroes are the nurses and the school teachers. Those are
yeah,
heroes. Those are people that I don't look up to any athlete. I don't, my favorite professional athlete of all time is a hockey player named Teemu Solani. And he was just at the Sport Card Expo in Toronto signing autographs this past weekend. And people know that he's my favorite athlete. And they said, "Oh, you must be so excited." I said, "Oh, I'm glad he'll be there, but I'm probably not going to go meet him." I mean, I know I met him when I was a kid. I'm sure he's a great guy, but I don't get starstruck. I have no interest in meeting somebody just because they're good at a sport. However, I love collecting the cards because I love the cards themselves. I'm a fan of the sport, and they entertain me. But by no means do I look at them as heroes.
sure. And the fact that they're talented individuals doesn't necessarily speak to their character, but there are several athletes that have outstanding character, and are also, you know, um, trying to, uplift the community and do service, and have that kind of approach that some of the public servants that, um, like the nurses and firefighters and, um, EMTs and first responders and, our armed services.
Teachers, kindergarten.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you make a really good point there because it brings to mind, first of all, Jackie Robinson. He's a hero. He's a hero because he led a change in culture. He's a hero. I think LeBron James. I know LeBron James is a polarizing athlete, but he has that school. I don't know what it's called that he funds in Cleveland, and he puts kids through university. He is a legitimate hero to that community and to those people who he's helping have a better life. I mean, he's making a big difference in the world. To me, he's more of a hero off the court than on the court. And maybe that's an important distinction I should have made earlier, is that an athlete, a professional athlete who gets paid tens of millions of dollars, is not a hero to me because of what they do on the court or on the ice or on the field. They can be a hero to me because of what they do off. And Jackie Robinson, I don't know if he set out to do it but he did it. He became the first colored baseball to cross the color barrier. To me, he's an athlete. His rookie card is my favorite card I own, because of what he meant and how he helped spearhead change. LeBron James is legitimately a hero because of that. Michael Jordan, on the other hand, I mean, he's a lot of people's heroes because how he could fly through the air, but the fact that he transcends the sport is all based on business. It's based on the sneakers, the Jordan brand, which is the Nike collaboration. Does that make you a hero? Not to me. Michael Jordan is not a hero to me, but he's certainly, an integral figure. He transcends sport. He might be the most famous athlete in the world ever, along with Muhammad Ali and Pele and some of those Jackie. But but to me, these aren't people that are heroes. Sorry, some of them aren't. All athletes aren't heroes to me. Just because you watch them suit up for your city and
Mhm.
play a sport well, to me, does not make them a hero.
Yeah, I'm with that, you know. Um, it's more of what makes I guess that the word hero in that sense, is more meant as a person of character um and good moral and all that. Someone that you aspire to be like, um and um that's not necessarily um attributed to any physical attribute or talent in that regard. Um, it's more of a internal thing, that what drives you as a human.
Yeah, I mean, if you take inspiration from your favorite athlete, listen, I don't want to sit here and tell you that person shouldn't be your hero. You are free to you not being you, but you, the greater you,
Mm.
are free to consider anybody whatever however you want to consider them to be. I mean, if you follow sort of celebrity social media and you think the Kardashians are your heroes because they can afford and have nice clothes and cars and jewelry, that's up to you to decide if that's what you want to aspire to be. And the same thing goes for athletes. If you are a high school or a young a bantam sort of baseball player, and your favorite baseball player is Mike Trout, and you want to aspire to be like Mike Trout, hey, please consider him your hero and aspire to play the sport the way he does. But as soon as you find out that that athlete does something bad, which we see happening, how does that impact you as someone who's been modeling your future professional sport career after them? Do you still want to be like them? You can the extreme case might be the OJ Simpson or Kyrie Irving, who I think maybe got a raw deal there. But what if your hero is Kanye, and now he has all these anti-Semitic accusations and issues for things he's said.
Mhm.
If he's your hero and you're an aspiring rapper or hip hop musician, artist, is he still going to be your hero? That's why I find it, we don't know what these people are truly like in their personal lives. All we know is what we see of them either when they're performing. So is it really logical to, and we're really going off on this whole hero thing based on what Dr. Beckett said, who I have the utmost respect for Dr. Beckett. But I do sort of take issue with this narrative that athletes, celebrities in general, are or should be or can be considered to be heroes.
Yeah, I don't think that being a public figure should be a qualifier for um for that kind of a moniker. Uh, but
But Tamer, do you think that like we as Dr. Beckett says, we collect our heroes, but we also collect those that entertain us, those who we've enjoyed watching, those who are exciting, they get you out of your seat when they're rushing down the ice or they
Mhm.
step up to the plate or they go in for a slam dunk. That is that's fun because sports have become ingrained with culture. We identify with our city's teams. We identify with some other cities' teams. We cheer. We cheer with our friends. It's a commonality. I live in Calgary. If you go to a hockey game to see the Calgary Flames play, you are among 15,000 like-minded people who are cheering for the same team. We have that instant, it's almost a rapport with each other because we're all wearing the same colored jerseys, and that's culture, it's geography, it's just a fun way to live. And then we want to get closer to that game because we identify with it, so we find ways to collect things, whether you buy a jersey from the souvenir stand at the game or you take it a step further and you collect cards, or you go even a step further and you collect game worn memorabilia. There's all sorts of ways to show how your fanaticism for your team or your players. Doesn't mean that you're thinking they're heroes, but it does mean that, this is what drives us to collect, because sports are so ingrained in culture right now, to the point where these athletes are bigger than the sports themselves a lot of the time.
That can happen with a good public relations team and agent and all that, but um, it's part of building that community, and um, that's the biggest part of it, I think, is people feeling like they're a part of something and belonging, because that kind of touches to a human need, and like social need as well. And that's just one of those contexts that we like uh, express that. So we go to these games and we cheer the people on, and we appreciate the talent and the abilities of the athletes that are performing and all that. And then if you find those things exciting, then choose to like you know have a piece of that. And uh, those the cards themselves, they have value, and they also have memories attached to them as well, and experiences and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, do you like also the players on the teams, they represent us, like it's I find it I find it hard to collect a player on my team because inevitably they leave the team. My hockey team just was disseminated this summer. We lost our whole core. Our three best players all left. So now everybody's scrambling to get a new jersey because they don't want their jersey to say Goudreau, Kachuk, or Monahan, because those guys all went to other teams. So our teams represent our city, and we are a part of our city. We take pride in where we live. A lot of us do. So that's kind of what we are celebrating. And then we want to go that step further and collect, because it gives us that sense of ownership almost of our team, because I don't own the team. Some businessmen own the teams. Businessmen, right? The billionaires club, they're who owns the teams
Right.
themselves. They're who pay the players. But by having a player's rookie card, or a card with a piece of jersey in it or whatever it might be, gives us that feeling of ownership, maybe. And I'm kind of thinking as I speak here, gives us that feeling of being a part of it. And that's a lot of fun because it's a fun sport, is fun. So it's like with some hockey card brands, they say, we get you in the game or closer to the game than possible, right?
Mhm.
That's branding, it's marketing, but it makes a lot of sense because we want to get closer to these things because we think professional athletes are cool. Why do they think they're cool? Why do we think they're cool? Because they're really good at what they do and they make a lot of money, and they get the women, right? I mean, these are the things that are why why we as a society and culture put them above everybody else. And I think it's kind of ridiculous. Everyone has to put their legs into their pants in the morning, just because
Yeah.
everyone starts the day the same way. Wake up, brush your teeth, make your bed, and go do what it is you do.
Yeah, I think that those things are fair, fairly arbitrary, the accomplishments and achievements and abilities and all that shouldn't uh, have someone, you know, treat people like they're less than or um, feel like they're entitled to having something that other people aren't. Um, but that happens a lot for various reasons. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I guess it's just a thing about values and priorities and just like where you place value, you know. Because some people put a lot of value in, you know, someone's ability to uh, score basketball or to kick a football or you know catch a football or
Swing a bat.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, or
It's like this is pretty deep discussion for a sports card podcast discussion, but
yeah,
it's not one that I've heard very often. So I enjoyed the discussion and kind of exploring it as we go. Make sure that my thoughts, that I really buy into everything I'm saying, and for the most part, I do. So I enjoy the discussion. And but if we bring it back to sports cards, which I think is kind of what your content is, and certainly what I like to talk about and I collect. The other nice thing about sports cards, Tamer, for me, is that they document history. If you look at, people say, what do you collect? I collect cards from 1888 to 2022, and eventually it'll be 2023. And I like to look at a card I have one card from 1888. I want to put that beside my cards from 1910 to 1920, 30, all the way to now. And you see how the world has evolved, printing technologies, the way the artistry, like these cards, somebody had to design them. Every single one of them had to be designed by somebody at some point. That's really exciting. The paper used, the quality of it, the attention to detail, all these things are part of the history of this hobby, which is literally just collecting just collecting cardboard. That's what this hobby is. And I've been doing it for over 40 years, so it's in my blood. And I've often said, I enjoy collecting cards more than I enjoy watching sports. I do enjoy watching sports, and I do watch sports, but I enjoy the hobby more than sports themselves. And I don't know. To me, that's not the way people get into it. I think because they like sports and then they get into collecting. That happened to me. I was watching hockey as a kid. I start collecting, and now 40 something years later, I enjoy the cards more than the sports, even though, again, I'm still a sports fan, but I'm more of a card fan. So, it's collecting is something that whether you're collecting sports cards or spoons or pet rocks or handbags, whatever it is that you collect, that it's almost like a personality trait. It fills this thing in our brains that makes us want to own things for better or for worse. And the fact that they're related to athletes just gives us that subject matter, that content to chase. And we like certain athletes for certain reasons. Again, doesn't mean they're our heroes, but we do like them. We like what they've done, and we want to own cards that represent their careers because we have great memories. And it's so tied into nostalgia. The 90s is nostalgic for so many people, myself included. It's that junk wax era. A lot of the players from back then, their rookie cards aren't worth anything because they were, there's millions of them out there, but you can still go after and collect, other cards of them that are more rare, more scarce, and more enjoyable to chase and look nicer than they looked in the early 90s anyway. So lots of different approaches and ways to and rationales, really, I guess, for why we collect what we do.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's really a good way to put things, because it's really how we go about this. That's all it is, you know. It's just collecting. It's try to, you know, over talk it or overthink it or whatever, you know. Just do what brings you joy, you
Yeah,
know.
don't worry about, yeah, like we can rationalize it all we want, but if you just enjoy what you're doing and don't worry about rationalizing it or getting too getting too much into the psychology, which I do enjoy that as well. I often wonder, why do I feel the need to constantly acquire more cards? Why can't I be happy with what I have? And I think it's just a human characteristic of, we want things because of we want to feel like we want to be distracted from some of the more difficult areas of life, like surviving. It cards, whatever hobby you have, maybe you like to knit, maybe you draw, maybe you collect cards, whatever it is, it helps distract us from the challenges of daily life, which is just surviving and making a living and having food, shelter, clothing, all these things. Cards take us back to when we were a kid and we didn't have to worry about all those things. At least for me, they take me back to being a kid when I take my $2 a week allowance, go buy 8 packs of hockey cards, but I didn't have to worry where my next meal was coming from. I didn't have to worry about buying in that next pair of shoes. My parents took care of that.
Mhm.
That those are the innocent days, and cards for a lot of people take you back to those young days.
Yeah, it does for me too. um and you know, uh looking at the design of the cards from all the ages and all the attention to detail and the players and the uniforms they wore, and um, the history of the leagues and everything, uh, and going back to what it is to just collect. Um, I like to talk about these things, even though they're not necessarily like about, oh, what's the next, Justin Fields, he's going off and da, 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 uh, it, I mean, that's all well and good, and you want to, there's so much of that out there, and people want you to buy this and do this and all this stuff, but um you know I think there's more to it than that, and that's why I like to talk about these other things that are not necessarily about like the things the things themselves, but like the people, and like what makes you want to do it, and um you know where you're coming from with it, because um I think that a lot of people have that on their mind in the hobby community, and uh that it would be something that would be interesting for them to hear about. And um, when they're someone that's like new to the hobby and they want to get into cards, and they're like, I don't know what is good or what's not, and you know I hope that they would come across this, and they would get some value out of it, and they wouldn't overextend themselves financially, or do anything that would hurt themselves, but they would find joy in their journey of learning about cards and stuff. So um, outside of the cards themselves, because they are awesome, and we all appreciate them, the people that are in it and enjoy it and collect, and um, you can find an appreciation for it if that's not something that you got into at first, but you want to get into it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think like something that is interesting because you're mentioning like you if you're new you want to get into it but you don't really know where to start. There's all sorts of resources and content out there, and even that's hard to sift through. But one thing I would kind of recommend or just advise, give some advice to people is when you look at cards, what happens in your brain? Like, do you get some joy from not all cards, but some cards, like there are cards that I can think about that just give me butterflies in my stomach. It's a weird thing to say because usually you get butterflies from love, right? Or from seeing the girl of your dreams, or or seeing your baby, or whatever it is. Like a human being who you love gives you butterflies in your stomach. I'm a weirdo, Tamer. I mean, there's some cards when I see a card for the first time, that really I love the way it looks. All the different aspects of the card, I can get it butterflies in my stomach, and then I know that that's a card that I can really love, and then I want to acquire it. And so when you're new in the hobby and you're coming in, there's so much selection out there. If you are only going to collect basketball, I mean, Panini itself has what, like 3,000 different brands. I exaggerate for effect, but
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot.
several brands to choose from. Look at them all. Look at some of the cards from there and decide what design, what finish on the card appeals to you most. Do any of them give you or come close to giving you butterflies in your stomach? And if they do, maybe that's the one that you should collect because you're going to enjoy it the most. Now, balance that with things that are important in collecting, like rarity, scarcity, um, what value, if that's important to you. Balance these things out. Find the one that kind of checks all those boxes to the maximum that they can, and maybe that's what you collect. And maybe pick your favorite player, your favorite team, or just try and collect the whole set, or try and collect all the rookies, or pick 10 players that you want to collect. You don't have to stick to a checklist. Checklists are, to me, checklists are sort of arbitrary in a way. It's the checklist of the brand manager who
Mm.
decided what players to put in that brand, and they did that in that afternoon. That's their checklist. It doesn't have to be your checklist. So if there's a set of cards, don't feel obligated to add every single card on that checklist, because inevitably, if it's a 3 checklist, aren't going to matter to you, and you're going to be like, why did I have to have them anyway? Unless you're a completist and you just want to have all those nine pocket pages in the binders and complete a set every year. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're not a set collector, it might take you some time to figure it out. But if you're not a set collector, you can make up your own checklist from a master checklist. So many different ways to do it. So really, the beautiful thing about the sports card collecting hobby is that you can customize it however you want for yourself. And of the hundreds of thousands of collectors out there, no two collectors, I don't think, collect the same to sport collecting, whatever in where makes most sense and can enjoy it.
Yeah. Um, hmm. Well, I think this is like a good place to kind of wind the conversation down. I think that was really well said, and I appreciate you like sharing your perspective and your time, and um, thinking about these things in a pretty unconventional way. Because uh, there's the cards and what someone's going to pay for them and what someone wants to sell them for and all that, but then there's the like experience of it, and the whole like uh, other things outside of that. So um sometimes I think that stuff can get neglected, when you're thinking about these like kind of almost trivial pursuits, kind of distractionary things. So um It can, things like this can help your quality of life, if you uh, go about it in a healthy way, you know. But that's just like with anything else in life.
I agree. I agree. If you have interests that supplement your life, make you, bring you joy. I mean, everyone's on their own journey in life. And I think that, we live in these free countries where we should be able to find, the pursuit of happiness. It's funny to come back to that, but isn't that in the Declaration or one of those United States documents? The pursuit we are, everyone should be free to
It's in the preamble.
yeah, in the pursuit of happiness. I think having a hobby is one way that people pursue happiness. I know it's how I do. The sports cards bring me happiness. There's no doubt about it. Sometimes they bring me frustration, but it's not often cards. It's often other collectors or people or participants in the hobby. But the hobby is part of my pursuit of happiness in life, and I'm sure it's that way for others. A lot of people probably don't even know that if they were to get into the hobby and collect sports cards, that would be part of making them happy or distracting them from some of the more stressful parts of life. So that's what it's supposed to be, a hobby. It's a business for a lot of people. It's a business for a lot of hobbyists, but you can still have the hobby part of it at the core, or as one of the pillars of your how you participate in the overall hobby. The hobby includes the business, it includes collecting, it includes flippers, investors, it encompasses it all.
Yeah.
And don't let anyone tell you how you should approach it or what's right or wrong. That's for them. They should govern themselves accordingly. Don't try to govern others. I think that's as long as you're not committing fraud or being devious and trying to mislead or any of that. If you're just doing this for fun, whatever it is, don't let anyone tell you how to do it. Tell them to pound sand and just go ahead and do it. What makes you happy in the hobby.
Yeah. That's really well said. Um, we're all collectors, even if you own a business. That's why I ask people, what's your grail? Since I know you collect, so what's your favorite card in your collection, and or do you have a holy grail that you are looking for, or one that you already have? Like, can you show it? Do you have it nearby?
Told that I could only keep one of my cards, it'd probably be my Jackie Robinson 48 leaf, but I would rather just get rid of them all at that point because I have thousands that I love and I wouldn't want to have to pick. As far as having a grail, I've been doing this a long time. I have most of my grails already, but if I had to say, if there's a grail out there, I would like to have a really nice 52 tops Mickey Mantle. I don't own one of those. I wouldn't mind having like, a mid grade, a 5 or a 6 on the PSA grading scale. I'd also like to have a Michael Jordan Precious Metal Gems red. I don't think a green will ever happen, but a red might one day. That's still a $250,000 card. That might be a grail for me. But yeah, that's about it. I just I just love so many cards. It becomes tough because there's a lot of competing priorities there.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, I have a couple grails, but they're not cheap.
Right, exactly. They're not cheap.
They never are.
No, I think the two cards I just mentioned, the Mantle I'd want's probably what quarter. They're both probably $250,000 cards. It's not going to happen, at least not in the near term. But I don't need those cards to be happy. I can buy a bunch of cards for $100 each, or 500 each, or $25 each, and get a lot of happiness and enjoyment from those as well. That's an important point to make to people as well, which is that if you're only gaining happiness by owning cards that are very expensive, is it because other people like them or because you like them? Because the more people that like them, the more expensive a card becomes. That's just supply and demand. So, it's cool to own cards that are valuable that everybody wants, like a Michael Jordan rookie. That's pretty cool, but they're also a dime a dozen. The 52 tops Mickey Mantle, it's not a rare card.
Yeah.
but it's extremely valuable, right? So, and it's beautiful and it's iconic and all those things. There's a lot of reasons around there, but you can still gain a lot of enjoyment from a $20 card or a $5 card. There's so many great cards out there that are still wonderful, even though they're not expensive.
Hmm. Okay. Well, yeah, again, Jeremy, thank you again for your time, and really grateful for you. Hopefully you can come back on again. I want to go over to Tag's headquarters and do like a walkthrough and talk with the guys there. So we're going to be setting that up pretty soon.
Great. Sounds
Yeah.
good. Well, what are you doing in the hobby? What's your angle?
Well, I sell cards online on my website, and I have an eBay store as well, and I have this podcast and looking at like create more content, um and like doing more events and like special live break events, here and there. Actually, if you want, next season I was trying to get some people to come to Dodger Stadium, um and do a live break, um with Stephanie from Mama Breaks and a few other people. Um, because we're both LA natives and stuff. And open up some baseball cards during the game, get a box and kind of enjoy the game and all that. So it would be fun to have you there too.
Yeah, if the timing works out, be happy to for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. All right.
Well, take care, be well, and we'll talk soon. Hope to see you at some
Thanks
of
for
the
having me,
shows in the near
Timer.
future.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the pod.
Yeah. All right. Take care, man.
All right. Bye-bye.